smile. Now the sunshine brings the light. Fill me out with a flame. I will let you in this game. Take me out when I'm down. 'Cause with you I'm safe and sound. 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 Safe and
I give in to the lesser fight. My body aches to be satisfied. My weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. I'm reaching out for the easy high. Please fortify this strength of mine. My weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. I give in to the lesser fight. My body aches to be satisfied. My weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. I'm reaching out for the easy high. Please fortify this strength of mine. My weakness comes and goes. My
Hello, hello. I'm not being signed as.
Good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rose Chitanumat. I'm going to be your moderator for today. Welcome to the webinar of the Post-Harvest Dutch Innovations for Loss Reduction and Quality Improvement. So on behalf of the Netherlands Embassy as a host, I would like to welcome all of the audience here through the virtualmission.com and to the Zoom application now. So in order to have a bit on the mission today, this mission today on agri-food is part of the Netherlands government program on the virtual mission for ASEAN 5, which is focused on water, wastewater, and agri-food. So the 5 ASEAN countries, what does it mean? Mean that on the 5 countries, which is Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. Today we have the speaker on the post-harvest sector with us. The webinar program today will consist of 2 sessions. Now we are in the session number 1 together for 1 hour. There will be a welcome speech from our guest speaker who is the host of this webinar, and also from the keynote speaker who is from Netherlands, which is very early morning now, from the top sector on agri-food. And then we follow by the panel discussion, which was taken place in the Netherlands, and followed by the post-harvest innovation, the expert from Netherlands as well. And again, closing session by Mr. Willem, our guest speaker and the host of today. So the session 2, it is very interesting. The session will be break into 3 breakout rooms. So you have to make sure that you go to the right link: fruit, vegetable, and flowers. We are going to provide you the link at the chat box after the session going to end. One thing I would like to invite the delegates, audience who are in the virtual mission and Zoom application today. You please register for the virtual mission ASEAN 5 under the Netherlands government. You will enjoy a lot of sector, which is the Netherlands government organized this virtual mission in order to bridge and connect between the Netherlands and the ASEAN country. This mission is part of the overarching Dutch campaigns on moving forwards together. We believe in that by taking action collectively and sharing our experience, we will become more resilient and united in weathering future challenge. So you can go and register for being a part of virtual mission with Netherlands government. So the next is just a brief housekeeping. If you have questions, please drop in the question box. And if you have any problem during the session, please go to the chat box. We will have our administrative help desk to help you. So now come to the post-harvest webinar to provide overall post-harvest challenges in agro-food production in ASEAN 5 countries, and to present how innovative solution that the Netherlands expert can bring into the table today. So right now, I would like to welcome our host today, Mr. Willem Schutra, Agriculture Counselor to Vietnam and Thailand Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality of the Netherlands, to give the welcoming message to all of us. May I invite all of you to join for his welcome speech. Let's Mr. Willem come now. Mr. Willem.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to speak to you in this virtual way. I'm the Agricultural Counselor for Vietnam and Thailand. And although it feels a bit strange not hosting you here on the ground in this beautiful region, but with this virtual trade mission, I think we found a really good alternative, taking into consideration the current situation with COVID. A big welcome to our business and knowledge partners, and a big welcome to our participants from Indonesia, from Singapore, from Malaysia, from Thailand, and of course Vietnam, the country I'm currently working in. Today we are talking about post-harvest losses, divided into two interesting sessions. We are going to discover what the challenges regarding post-harvest losses are, and especially with the focus on the Southeast Asian region. And also what experience and technology exists in the Netherlands and in the region itself that might be a solution to reduce post-harvest losses. But let me start congratulating the countries in this region with their achievements in their economic and agricultural development over the last years. The countries have proven to be exporting countries and contributing to food security. And above all, they have much more ambitions. That's why I trust this webinar can benefit from the Netherlands and the 5 countries into stronger partnerships. The Netherlands, as you all know, is a strong and large trade partner. A large trade partner of these countries here, and already many agricultural products and technology are exported and also imported to the Netherlands. And what we experience, that more and more potential is present. The Netherlands being famous for their agricultural innovation and trustworthy image. But we're also having the global challenges of today. Think about food security and climate change. They require sustainable innovation in our agricultural production, but also in our food production and consumption. Doing nothing is not an option anymore. And a food secure future and a climate resilient future is really possible, but only if we respect the needs of our unique planet. And only if we deal with climate change and respect biodiversity. If we take care about farmlands or farmers and our environment. And if we protect water, soil, bees, and other insects. The Netherlands government wants to approach food security in a very specific way, a circular way, a way without waste and a way that is more sustainable. The reduction of post-harvest losses is a key element in this ambition, all in line with SDG 12.3. I think we are all aware that many food is lost or wasted after it is harvested. And think about it. What a pity it is to see that all the energy and care of farmers that have put into our apples or rice or mangoes and other beautiful and tasteful products, all for nothing. Let me give some examples that provide Dutch solutions. We have companies develop specialized coatings for longer shelf life, or new packaging techniques that are more environmental friendly and preserving the products longer. And let's not forget about our cold chain and logistic contribution significantly to our exporting position in the world. And of course, many more. The upcoming 2 sessions we have the opportunity to get all inspired by listening to the latest trends and examples. I trust this webinar will taste to further inspiration, collaboration, and action between the 5 countries and the Netherlands. I wish you all good luck and hope to see you physically in the region soon when the situation allows. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Mr. Willem. So it's quite clear on the direction of the Netherlands government. So it is very clear that everyone talking about the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN. The Netherlands government also has aimed to be part, and why it's ASEAN 5. If you can see on like Thailand, Vietnam, we had a lot of agricultural products, but still we have import products increasing year by year. For Vietnam, the sustainable development can be improved to the quality. Singapore has very less land, but they are developing in the farm, like the high technique of farm. So this session that we are bringing today is about the post-harvest, as Mr. Willem said. It's not only about the processing at the after harvesting, but we'll cover a bit on the cold chain, on a bit on the transportation, packaging to keep the nutrition of your post-harvest products start with a good shelf life. So right now I'm going to start into the next keynote speaker, who is from Netherlands. So we have with us Ms. Willemijn van Asselt, the Director of International Strategy, Netherlands Top Sector Agri and Food. So talking about the Netherlands top sector, the agri and food is one of the 10 top sector in Netherlands, which is excel worldwide, which is business, universities, research center, government and social organization working together on knowledge and innovation. And the international rise to be like invest on the human capital, and in order to strengthen this position, we have with us today Ms. Willemijn. So may I invite Ms. Willemijn van Asselt, who is the Director International Strategy for Netherlands Top Sector Agri and Food, to give the keynote speech on this post-harvest webinar. Please, Ms. Willemijn.
Thank you very much, Rose, for your introduction. And hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here, indeed, this morning and afternoon for you. My name is Willemijn van Asselt, indeed. I work for Top Sector Agri-Food in the Netherlands, and I'm very happy to be able to open and to be keynote in this session. As Top Sector, we are track leader of the total agri and food track within this Southeast Asian mission. So most likely we will meet each other again in other webinars as well. Maybe for your context, and maybe you can put up the sheet for this, because I prepared a short presentation. Yes, thank you. Top Sectors, we are indeed a public-private partnership. So this means that in our board, we have companies, we have research, and we also have the farmers organization. And our main focus in the Netherlands is indeed innovation and knowledge enhancement, let's put it that way. Next, please. And Willem already told you, but I think it's important to stress that we have to focus on innovation. And this is, of course, because we have a growing population, but also, at least in the Netherlands, we are struggling with attracting labor to the fields, but also with the labor costs. And maybe even more important, we face some serious challenges all over the world. And of course, we know climate change. We know that our agricultural areas are declining. We have some issues with soils, but recently, of course, we have COVID crisis. And I think this made even more clear that we have to secure our foods and work on food security, as well as food safety and quality. Next one, please. So this is a slide I like to show very much because it is the key of our message. So we only have one world. So we have to do better with the available land, but also with the resources and the food that comes out of this land. And we believe strongly that this asks for a new approach, an approach that involves knowledge and also involves technology. And this brings us, of course, to post-harvest technology as well. Next one, please. So one of the things I'm still astonished about is that if you look worldwide, still a third of our food is wasted. So this means that it's the third biggest carbon emitter we have in the world. And this is a huge, huge number. Next one, please. But this also means that we have to change this and we have to turn this around. And actually, this brings us to post-harvest technology because this is where it starts. You have to make sure you reduce food waste at the source, which is the after production. But it's not only about food waste. I think it's about having more foods available and also about maybe even adding value and having more options for distribution of these foods. And I think this is why it's important that technology in post-harvest comes in place. Because if you cool it, if you pack it, if you process it, so you will, and you can transport it, and you can reach a lot more people within your countries, but also abroad by exporting these products. So next one. So in the Netherlands, this is one of the reasons why in our priorities, we focus a lot on technology, technology for production, but also technologies to save the food, to package the food, to transport the foods. And this is what made us, at the Netherlands, one of the most important hubs in Europe, because this system of chains is really developed well in the Netherlands. So I want to leave it at that. You will hear a lot of interesting information from the speakers that are coming after me, but I'm really happy to have this first webinar, and I'm really looking forward to not only exchange, but also how we can join forces and come up with available technologies, but also new solutions for your country. So thank you very much for this short moment, and back to you, Rose.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Williman. It's very clear. I like what you are putting in the slide. The world cannot be bigger than this. So the better we are using the land, better we are using the resource and the innovation that can bring into post-harvest technology. I add to Ms. Williman is about leading post-harvest loss, I would say. So right now, are you ready that our panelist discussion from Netherlands is going to be in this webinar now? The webinar is going to broadcast on the panel discussion from the panelist who is knowing about post-harvest challenge that happen in ASEAN countries. The speakers that will join us today, there are about 4 speakers, and we have the moderator in Holland to handle that. So the first one, Mr. Albert Hoek, former executive director from Brockman Logistics. Mr. Mark de Ruyter, post-harvest technologist from Lennis International. Mr. Jacques Earth, senior consultant from RBK Group. Mr. Jun Kaiser, senior lecturer from International Project Coordinator from Haas University of Applied Science. So I would like to request you to join with full attention to the panelist discussion. Please.
Good afternoon to all in the Southeast Asia region. Good morning in the Netherlands. My name is Jessica Schulte. I'm a project manager at Larive International, and today it is my pleasure to host this session on post-harvest losses and how to adequately manage them in the supply chain. So today I have a panel of experts with me who will discuss post-harvest management through effective collaboration in the supply chain. We will address current challenges, showcase Dutch technologies, and discuss how governments, business and knowledge institutes can work together to support innovation. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce my panelists. We have Albert Hoek, who is a former executive director of Brockman Logistics. Jacques Aerts, a senior consultant at RBK Group. We have Toon Keizers, senior lecturer of international projects at the Haas University of Applied Sciences. And we have Mark de Ruyter, post-harvest technologist and international development manager at Lentis International. So Mark, let's start with you. You hold a master's degree in post-harvest technology and spent a considerable amount of time in Vietnam. Now you work as a consultant, trainer and lecturer for Lentis International, and you have visited over 35 countries for technical assistance projects. Post-harvest management is, of course, a multifaceted concept. Can you please explain to us what the biggest challenges are in the ASEAN region?
Yeah, if I look at the Asian region, then I was thinking about the urbanization challenge and related to that, the post-harvest management. If you look at from 2000 to 2030, there will be an increase of 46%.
Of zie je niks?
Of cities, you know.
Oh, wacht even zo.
Cities. And the larger cities, as you can see,
Zie je nu wat? Nee, nu zie je mij.
In the Asian region.
Nee, dit is het Engels.
But there will be bigger cities. And Already, you know, if you look at some of the big cities, it takes you 2-3 hours to go from one end to the other. And that's a huge challenge if you talk about fresh, you know, food into the cities. So one of the challenges is the urbanization, and with that comes infrastructure. You know how to get the produce to the consumers. But urbanization also means less people in agriculture. Less people will be producing the food. So the challenge is therefore, how do we feed those cities? How do we manage to get the produce, the fruits, in a good condition on the shelves? So one of the important things, therefore, is that, you know, food losses are reduced. That's a given. It's like, well, 30 to 40% is lost, generally speaking. So if you can get 30-40% less losses, then that's great. But then people that live in cities are going to demand, because of their wealth, because of their education, they're going to demand more, better quality. And with that, food safety. So it's not anymore just about me as a farmer wanting to improve my profitability, but I also want now a better quality and a guarantee that my food is safe. So that's a couple of huge challenges for the governments there. If you look at how to feed those cities. You know, I don't know, but logistically, if you look at logistics, it's a huge challenge. You know, you can't, you know, some of the cities are, how do you say, full of traffic jams, and, you know, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark, for this interesting explanation of the challenges. It seems that they are very complex and that they require a lot of different players to work together. So to speak more about this, we have Toon Keizers here with us. You have worked for over 20 years in capacity building and private sector development programs in agribusiness with the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Asia. You now work as a lecturer for international food and agribusiness at the Haas University of Applied Sciences. And you have extensive experience in the field of strategic partnership coordination. What role can knowledge and education institutes play to successfully implement innovative solutions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a big question. I think the Netherlands has a long history of working together with different institutions. We always talk about the Dutch diamond, of course, which is a very famous concept. But I think looking at the history of the agri-food business in the Netherlands, we have a history where government, business and education has always worked together, education and research. And most of our education institutes, Wageningen University, also Haas University of Applied Sciences, Lentis, many of them are established by business. And so it's very important that from the start there's a good connection. Because we talk about challenges, Mark just explained the future challenges of the big cities and feeding the big cities. Those challenges have to be solved also by future generations. So we have to connect really the challenges with the new generation. And in the Netherlands we have a very nice tradition of working together with industry, for example. And also that our students, they are they are doing their assignments with industry. So already in their education programs, they get to know the real challenges of industry. And a government, of course, is very important as policy developer in food security, food safety, but also in education. And what we see in many Asian countries, that still can be improved. We see a lot of education in Asian countries is still largely focused on production and efficiency in production. And looking at the whole value chain, that is something that needs to be strengthened. And we believe we can play a role in that, especially connecting the new generation to beautiful companies in logistics, in processing. And I think we have a large history in that in the Netherlands, and I think we can share that.
Thank you so much, Toon. I know that we have a lot of people in the audience who are perhaps representatives of local governments or who have experience in working together in the so-called Dutch diamond, but perhaps it would be great if people can share that in the chat. We already spoke about some of the challenges and how to solve that. We have Albert Hoek from Brookman Logistics here with us. You have worked at Brookman Logistics for over 43 years and have been the managing director for 25 years for the shipping and international freight forwarding divisions. Brookman operates with fully owned operations in Europe and in Asia, in India, Singapore, and Shanghai to be specific. And Toon just spoke about collaboration between governments, business, and education partners. Brookman was involved in such a public-private partnership. It's called FoodTech India, and we have a small video. So let's have a quick look at this.
India has a rising population of 1.3 billion people. While the country's farmers are able to grow sufficient grains, fruits, and vegetables for the nation, poor handling of fresh food results in 18% of India's produce, worth $1.8 billion, going to waste every year.
ನಾನು ಓಪನ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯವಸಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ತರಕಾರಿಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಿತೀನಿ. ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಸೌತೆಕಾಯಿ ಮತ್ತು ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸಿಕಮ್ ಬೆಳಿತೀನಿ. 1 ಎಕರೆ ಸೌತೆಕಾಯಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 20 ಟನ್ನಿಗೆ ಒಂದು 5 ಟನ್ನಷ್ಟು ವೇಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸಿಕಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 10 ಟನ್ ವೇಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
Everybody knows that the Indian market, when it comes to agriculture and food production, has the challenge to deal with waste. 35–40% of the products, once harvested, is wasted by the time it gets to the shelf. The Dutch government and the initiative made by FoodTech India partners is to reduce the waste.
FoodTech India is a public-private partnership which started in 2015. The partnership consists of Rick Swan, Brookman Logistics, TNO, Future Group, Larive International, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands.
The objective is mainly to reduce the wastage of the food productions from the farmers level to the end customers.
The objective of the FoodTech India initiative is to reduce food wastage in India through the implementation of an integrated supply and cold chain for vegetables cultivated in greenhouses. To enable this, FoodTech India has developed a demonstration polyhouse in Tumkur that can train farmers and showcase technologies from the Netherlands to upgrade the horticultural sector. Brookman Logistics provides logistics for the collection of vegetables from farms and all the way to retail delivery.
So Albert, Brookman Logistics provides turnkey global value chain solutions. It seems that many of the challenges related to post-harvest require proper value chain coordination. How does a company like Brookman Logistics work with this?
Well, in short, basically is use our own expertise combined with the local expertise from the market. So if we talk about post-harvest, basically you talk to the farmer first. Quite often we have seen that all kind of delegations have invented the wheel, but they forget to talk to the farmer. So basically it starts with the farmer and go into the field, talk to him, gain his trust and ask him, say, okay, what are your challenges, what are your bottlenecks? And then you start building it up and you take all the stakeholders who add value to the whole chain into consideration.
So basically what you're saying is you start with a small pilot and then you start to scale up. A big part of this is, of course, the business case that relates to it. For this, we have Sjaak Arts, who is an all-around project designer and project manager specialized in the design of food production plants with over 30 years of experience. You have worked for the RBK Group since 1991 and developed various innovative concepts such as the clustered food village. The proof of concept, piloting technologies that Albert just spoke about, is largely dependent on a viable business case. Can you please speak a bit about your experience with this?
My experience is with the food market that we have, we design contacts of concepts, and one of the concepts is clustered food village, and in principle it's not new, because when we look to the Netherlands, in 1910 in Amsterdam we had a food market, it's called Food Center Amsterdam, In the last few years, we redesigned it and remodeled it, and it is now completely rebuilt. But that is the basis of the system and the know-how. And what already is said by Mark and Toon and also Albert is we have to work together. It's like a chain way of thinking, and if you have all the partners in the system, you can make a plan and it will function. My first start in let's say in Asia was that I had a little bit more hair than now, yeah. Then we went to the cities and had a lot of discussion, and we had the opinion. We in the Netherlands, we know exactly how to do it, and we go to there and we will explain how it has to work. But that's not the way. So in the big thing we organized was the FoodTech Holland. I was one of the founding fathers of it. That is the basic principle how to work together and to get business done in Asia or worldwide. So that's and therefore we designed the clustered food village, yeah, so that all companies who produce combined, and also then you can combine the transport, logistics, because then you have full trucks always, and not that 10 companies transport their own product, but they do it together. And also we designed a way of saving energy and in the system to make a centralized cooling and automatization systems, so that is the most efficient way to produce, and that's important for this model. And you have to project it on each city. It's like a tailor-made way of thinking, but it's a working concept, and we are glad to join together with everyone, because that's the only way it will work.
You have a panel with a lot of experience across many different countries. How do we work in such a large geographical area, and how do we work towards localizing these solutions?
It's basically, let's say, bringing the knowledge from the Netherlands with their experience together with the local stakeholders, where you basically sit down in a brainstorm session and let's say, okay, let's talk about strawberries. They grow somewhere in the field and they have to go to the shelf in the store. And what is all needed to get there? The practical operational solution, full supply chain logistics. That's one approach. Second approach is, what does the market price do? And how much can the product afford? And then there are, in certain cultures in the world, there are the so-called middlemen, and they are famous to disrupt the economics of a system because they have their own pocket to fill. And that's something you can openly discuss with the local authorities, local players, and then jointly come up with a practical solution. And that's, of course, you will find a lot of hindrances in discussing that, but it's part of the game. If you want to improve the whole food supply chain, you have to tackle all the issues, even those which are not spoken of. And I think what we practice with FoodTech India, where we work with local players and Dutch know-how, looking back, this 4-year project was a big success. But quite often in discussion, it was a very Dutch, blunt way of tackling the issues, but always with respect to the people. And I think if you put that combination in place, any project can be a success, any bottleneck can be overcome. And yes, change doesn't come without a certain pain, but that's part of the process.
I think this is very nice. It starts with the market, and that's, I think, very well explained here. And when the market mechanism works, when there are really business relations established between the Netherlands and the country in a specific country in Asia, then it becomes also interesting for us as sort of supporting institutions and looking at what are then the issues in the value chain, and what is also maybe the knowledge or the skills needed for professionals in this value chain so that this chain can operate more efficiently. And culture, I lived in quite a number of different countries, and I think it's good. We don't have to change our culture. We have our Dutch culture that's direct and that has its value, but at the same time, and I fully agree, you have to respect the local cultures. And in our experience, that works very well if you work together with local partners. Local partners that know the situation well, that can also be the bridge between our knowledge, skills, and also the local context. And I must say that also the agricultural counselors of the Dutch embassies, they play also a very important role in that respect.
I think what Toon is telling, we, in principle, RBK is a consultant, architect, and automatization company. We do exactly the same, because we can bring all the know-how inside of the country and discuss it with people, but we always look for local partners. So that, for example, local architect of engineering companies, and we work together with them. So we make the concept, they do the detailed design, and the nice thing of this way of working is that they will be partner. So in more countries we have a lot of partners, and that's the way to share knowledge and to work together. So that's the best way to have an open mind. And the Dutch people are very direct and open. So some cultures they have to use it, but it's the way to do business.
So you're really looking for buy-in from local parties?
Yeah, local parties buy-in, but also the shared knowledge, because we make the design, and we need local architects for the construction and everything. So it's.
But I agree with what you say. We have a slogan in our company in Broekman. It's called Global Reach with a Personal Touch.
Yep.
And I think that kind of covers it all.
Yeah.
The challenge, of course, is to go very practical.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of, let's say, I think we've all seen, I don't know how many PowerPoint presentations. This is how the supply chain or the value chain works. Nothing wrong with it, but then put it in practice.
Yeah.
Go into the field, talk to each other, and find practical solutions.
Yeah.
And if a Dutch company is willing to, let's say, to commit to a certain project, one of the lessons learned from my side is basically put your money where your mouth is. So this is the project. It's a 5-year project.
Yeah.
Okay. Put 100,000 euros on the table as a partner in the project. Then you are committed.
Yeah.
Of course, if we only talk with no action, nothing will change.
No, you're right. Nothing will happen.
I was also thinking that we, from a Dutch perspective, we have a long history, so we know where we came from and where we are now. But I think for a lot of countries, there is no time almost. You know, we sort of organically evolved, and we had time because urbanization in the Western context was slow. But what you see in Asia is the rate of urbanization is really high. So you have to do almost what we have done over, say, 100 years, they have to do in 10, 20 years. And that's a huge challenge, because not only you have the big rural, there will still be a big rural population with rural markets, with rural settings, but they also want food safety, they want food security, they want less losses, etc. But they don't have the finances and the investment to make that work well. So you have to look at localized technology, localized solutions in certain rural areas, whereas you go to the urban centers with the big retail that wants the perfect produce. You have completely different technology needs and knowledge needs, and I think we can both, because of our experiences, bring knowledge and experience to these places.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So what I think is a very interesting dynamic that you're touching upon here is the duality of knowledge and also technical solutions. So which one is leading? Because we have companies, of course, here who are working on the technology side. We have our representatives from the knowledge side. Where do we start?
It's a combination of all elements, but I think in the post-harvest, the first mile delivery is always a challenge from the rural area to a first collection center where weighing, cutting, sorting and packing takes place. Then the relevant easy part is transporting it to the next distribution center nearby a city. And then you have the last mile delivery. And I think if you look 10 years, 15 years ahead, drone logistics to certain drone points nearby the retail shop it's very feasible. And I think we have to be aware where the European cities are old infrastructure-wise, so trucks can hardly go through the cities. The most Asian cities are more modern, especially the new built infrastructures, and there will be places where they can do a simple thing like drone logistics. And I think that's an innovation you have to look at 10, 15 years from now. It's a reality, it will happen, and then all the small trucks and motorbike delivery will be gone. It will be different, and the retailer will pick it up from the drone drop point and said, okay, I have my 5 cases of strawberries straight to my shelf. I think that those are innovations. Technically, it's all possible, but there's always a limit, which is the financial side. Can the product afford? Will the consumer pay for a better quality and so on? And those are all elements you have to take into the consideration when addressing the issue of, well, post-harvest and everything else after it.
What is also nice, and what was also mentioned by Mark already, you have different phases, talking about rural population, about rural industry as well, rural agribusiness, and then you have the bigger cities with a modern infrastructure. And it's important to realize that the innovations that we can stimulate in Asian countries, it has to be adapted. They have to be adapted to those different phases and to those different local contexts. And sometimes I think from the Netherlands we can overshoot. We can come with the most modern technologies which are not connected to the local realities. Exactly. But at the same time, in many Asian countries, and I've been to quite some Asian countries, they are also very modern, and they are very eager to learn. So you see a very, let's say, urban, very innovative, modern context, and you see the rural context, which is a different phase. And I think we have to be smart that way. So not high tech, but smart tech.
Yeah, and I think in that sense, I think Dutch. I've been to many countries, and sometimes I feel we as Dutch think we have solutions without looking at the already at the context of the situation there. And the context is so important. Like we already said, can people afford to pay for a better product? If that's not the case, forget the high investments.
No, I agree what you say.
Local, you really need to look at the context and say what is appropriate technology. And interestingly, already, and this is not in the post-harvest, but in the greenhouse sector, we only, so to speak, have high tech. But there, in order to get a bigger share in the market, we have to sort of do lower high tech in order to expand our market. Because there's many countries where our high tech is not going to make an impact, well, or it's useless almost, So you have to, I think we from the Dutch side, we also have to adapt to local situations as quickly as possible.
I agree, and to add to it, maybe an example from practice, when we were doing our Indian project, we had figured out we needed a full IT system to control the data and so on. Yeah. So technically it was all available, apps and so on. Then we came to the farmer, he said, well, I have a mobile phone, I can receive text messages. Forget apps. We have to go back to the old-fashioned text messages, because that's the lowest level where the information would start. He would send a text message, I have 20 crates of cucumbers ready by tomorrow. Yeah. And then the pickup would start and so on. So it's practical, common sense, but very down to earth. That's an element we Dutch often forget. We want to go to the moon. Not yet. No. Let's first build something which is practical, needed in the market. Make sure the education is in place. And education is not rocket science. Do it practical, do it on a Saturday afternoon, close to where a farmer cluster can be. They can come there, serve some tea, serve some cookies, do a simple presentation. And one of the lessons we have learned, yes, it can be in English, but it's better to do it in a local language to do the presentation. Because they understand English, but they don't understand English. Make sure you have this connection with the local players. It's crucial.
I think what's very important is to understand what's happening there. So we start always to look to the total supply chain. So what also is said is important is the market, but people have to trust that the food is healthy and good produced, and therefore you need traceability and transparency in your supply chain and traceability. So what important is to look how it's going now, and to add the cold chain in it, because a lot of products are from the farmers collected, and then it's not cooled, and the next day it will picked up, and then a lot of products are already waste. Yeah, and that you have to monitor it and to optimize it. That's the first start, and then you can help them with very practical ways and tools to get it to the consumer, and that will be the future. And what Albert also said, it's unbelievable what is happening in all those countries. Yeah, we think this is the way, but you will notice there will be a lot of other solutions, and that's the way to work together.
But it's interesting, you mentioned cold chain. I've seen it implemented in, I won't mention the name of a country, but yes, ideally, cold chain works. But then at the same time, if the governments don't have policies or standards, and make sure that, like, you say it has to be transported at 3 degrees C.
Yeah.
But you know what happens between A and C, nobody checks, and the economics don't create incentives enough to keep that 3 degrees centigrade. So the truck driver turns off the cooling system to save on gas or diesel, and then when it arrives, he turns it on again, and then we have major problems. And it is all to do with not just the technology, but you need the policy. You need the check.
Yeah.
Are we keeping what we're saying we want to do?
There is
Otherwise,
one
it's
more
not
step
going
in
to work.
addition. There is one more step in addition we have to consider is, let's say, government policies, procedures, all required. At the end, the consumer, is the consumer prepared to pay 10-20% in addition for a fully cold chain product? And the reality is not. If the price difference for a better quality product is too high compared to the traditional way he picks it up from the shelf, it doesn't work. I've seen refrigerators sitting in the retail, nice refrigerators, but there was no electricity. They were not connected. So what about cold chain?
No, so cold chain is important, but you need to make sure it works throughout, and then
what is a nice word that
value.
I heard already several people saying, it was Albert and Jacques, practical. And be practical. And there are some nice pictures here. This is visiting with people from education, really go into a modern supermarket in Hanoi in Vietnam. And that is really going, and not only here, but also going to the wet markets, going to the growers, going through all the steps in the chain. Go out there. Yeah, don't look at PowerPoints. Go out there, go into practice, and see what's happening, and see what can be improved. Yeah, so make it practical.
Yeah, I agree.
It seems that there's lots to learn also on the Dutch side when we're talking about collaborating in Southeast Asia. So there's great ambitions at this table to make it work and improve post-harvest management in the supply chain. So how can we do this? How can we move forward? What needs to be done, and what do we need to put in action for the next innovation, as Albert already said? What can we expect?
I think it's back to basics, make a plan, make a pilot, make sure you have the right stakeholders, get the funding in place to make it work. Don't do it for just, let's say, another market research, because there are plenty of reports laying around the world. Go practical, choose a commodity, choose a bunch of farmers, work it out, talk to a retailer at the end and say, okay, this is what we want to do, funding in place, let's put it practical. And I think if that works, small scale, you can scale it up to a larger, and you can take a second, a third, a fourth commodity. That's the most practical approach I can think of. And as I said, all the research reports, well, give them to the farmer, he can burn them, because it doesn't add any value.
Coming from a knowledge institution, I would sort of nuance that. Don't burn all of them, I would say. But it's good to
Nobody reads them.
There's nothing so practical as a good theory. And there are some theories that are really useful. I would say, so don't burn them, I would say. And what we found is very useful, and we have at HAS, we have also a lectoraat, a professorship, looking at future food systems, and looking at all the different aspects of the food system. And that's, of course, in the end, the consumer and what you want to reach, but looking at the full value chain, looking at all the actors, and understanding what are the real issues in this food system. And that's a good starting point, I would say. And looking at the food system in the country, and then you can set priorities. Where can we focus now? And then we should form smart coalitions with businesses, with knowledge institutions, education, and of course support from embassy, etc., and governments, because you need funding often to kickstart this. So set the right priorities, and food system can really help in that. Build coalitions and get funding together to make it happen.
I agree with Toon. What the experience we have is you have to get all the stakeholders on the table, and you have to have a good mix. If you only talk with government, it's very nice, but then you end with the reports, what Albert is telling. And I don't burn them. I have them digital. So it's. But I think it's good to have the data, but you have to mix it with the private people, entrepreneurs. You have to get in, and also. Let's say what the end station is like a big retailer. Then you can build the system and the chain. And our experience is we often make master plans. So then you can say this could happen in 10 years, and then we go back to the first step. And that's important. And then you can do it step by step, and then people can see it, and you can let's say. Like a model, people can see it from other countries or other cities and say, okay, this fits by me, or I change it. But that's the way to do it. And I think there's a lot to do, because what Mark said in the beginning, the growth of urban cities in Asia, Africa is huge. Yeah? And I've read in one of those reports, from FAO. I like them. Yeah. And that in 30 years there will be 2.5 billion people go to more and more to the cities, and 90% of that will happen in Asia and Africa. So there is a huge demand and a lot of work to do for us, the whole team and everyone together, to set it up. So I'm very practical, and I say, okay, let's start. And don't talk anymore. Start with it. Yeah.
It's interesting. If you look at Africa, a lot of countries are setting up corridors, and it's and if you look at how things have developed in the past, like a railway company was working by itself, a fruit company was working by itself, a institution was working by itself. But now the governments, the private businesses, the public institutions, they all bring together everything. So they build a corridor. They start growing. They start building greenhouses. They start putting down the rail lines, the infrastructure. So it's all put together in one big plan, and it works. And it's amazing what's happening in Ethiopia, Eritrea, but also in Angola. You see these corridors being built. And I think, in a sense, you need to get that done in Asia as well for those big cities. How do you build from the rural areas the supply chain into the cities, but together? Because it's in the interest of the government. We need to keep our people healthy, strong, and happy, not the least of all things. And the people we need to have a good supply chain, and the businesses' interests are the same. We all want to get good quality to the markets.
What's also interesting in feeding the cities, of course, you need effective supply chains from rural areas, maybe production areas, into the cities. But also, of course, vertical farming is a very important development. And at HAS we also have a professorship in new cultivation systems, and that's also a very promising new development. But of course, it should be related to the market. If consumers are not willing to pay for the costs of these cultivation systems, it will not work. But certainly there are consumer segments that it's really interesting. Yeah. And the Netherlands is developing very fast also in this technology. Yeah? And so I think we have in the famous Westland in the Netherlands a very modern facility. And I think that's also a promising new development where if it's really fitting in the local context, the Netherlands could play an important role.
I think you are involved in Singapore with vertical farming. And again, that's the context. And Singapore doesn't have a lot of land. So vertical farming makes sense there, where maybe in another country it's maybe less. But also for some produce, vertical farming is way more cost effective because you cut out all transportation, from far away. Yeah. And because of the shelf life, it makes sense because, like lettuce, you can't keep holding it from other places. Yeah. So vertical farming plays an important added value to the chain. I'm
also very, very happy with your remarks because
you're in this business?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because normally the way of building food villages is you have a lot need a lot of space because you have a lot of companies, but you can also go up, and integrate it with this kind of farming. And also when we then look to the energy consumption from cooling, we can create heat. We can use it also for growing, and with water we can do the same. So we can optimize a lot, and that could be very interesting for this kind of concepts to start with.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, I think that you have given lots of very practical advice to our audience. And I would like to encourage the audience to share your own innovative solutions that you have regarding post-harvest management. And perhaps you can even reach out to some of the government and educational institutes who have posed their ways of collaborating earlier in the chat. So for now, I think I would like to thank my panelists for today. Albert Hoek, Sjaak Aerts, Mark de Ruiter, and Toon Keizers. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your expertise. Furthermore, I would like to extend a thank you to the Dutch Embassy in Vietnam for hosting this interview, and of course our audience who has been eagerly listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that is, I would say that we have a lot of blonde hate that sharing. So learning from those panelists is reduce loss, improve quality, improve availability, increase your sales. And the top priority I learned from the panelists is increase food safety and improve food security. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the aim of the Netherlands government, that bringing all the experts to share from the logistics, from the educational, but of course the government is playing the key role in supporting on the system. And I have captured from the panelist discussion, you can contact the Netherlands Embassy in your country. The agricultural counselor is ready to help you. They have the high technology, lower technology, and can connect the Netherlands technology into the localization. So let's make the world better and make get the production from your farms better. So the other learning things is for those who from Singapore, the vertical farming is another knowledge that you can connect with the Netherlands Embassy. With the urbanization bigger, we have to find how to feed that bigger urbanization. So the next generation also important. So we need to make sure that the post-harvest is the thing that giving more of the production and try to reduce the post-harvest loss. So right now, I think many people already throw the question into the chat box. So before going to the next important speaker, I would like to let all of us join the poll. We have the poll in related to the post-harvest. Let's us join this discussion in order to see how you have learned, what is your forecast or knowledge about the post-harvest. So I give you another 15 seconds, and then we are going to review the finalize of the poll, and we are going to the next speaker. So, all right. For the first one, give one cause of post-harvest. Wow, very high percentage on lack of appropriate processing technologies. This note will be sent to the Netherlands team, okay? And the next one, how many percent? This is the information from FAO. One of the speakers saying also that don't do the new market research again. A lot of market research is available on the market. So the how many percent I will review that? This is 13.8% is from the FAO study. And the last one is about how many percent post-harvest loss happen at your facility. So I think there is a lot of happen facility, so the vote you can put in together. So all right, so come to the next session that we have the speaker from Wageningen University, Miss Heike Axman. She is expertise and project leader on the supply chain development from Wageningen University. She will present about the post-harvest innovation in the Netherlands. So I would like to welcome Ms. Heike, and let's all of us enjoy with her presentation. Please, Ms. Heike.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'm still disabled to share my screen. Can you start that? Then I can use my presentation. Okay, so you are sharing it. Yes, thank you for this opportunity today to give a short presentation on post-harvest and Dutch innovations. I think the previous speakers, so my presentation, I think, brings nicely together what some of the previous speakers also said. Can I go to the next slide, please? So it was already mentioned also by some previous speaker and also in the poll right now that 1/3 of our produce, which we produce, never reaches the market. And it's not about only the volumes. We especially have to look into the calories which we are losing, the nutritional value, which is about 25%, and also the greenhouse gas emissions we are producing by throwing away all this produce. And that's very, very critical amount. It's more than about 80% of our overall greenhouse gas emissions. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here we have mapped nicely how that looks like in the world. What are the critical crops actually as we look on food loss and waste and the related greenhouse gas emissions. And you see it's very important that we discuss this subject matter today because actually vegetables and fruits, they are the highest, we have the higher losses in the world, up to 50%, in some countries even more. And it's also, if you look at the second graph in my slide, you also see what kind of greenhouse gas emissions those are produced by the food loss and waste and the vegetables. For sure, there are more if it comes to greenhouse gas emissions. There are other critical crops like bovine meat and rice. But if it comes to hotspots on food loss and waste, this is clearly fruits and vegetables and flowers, because we only mapped here the food crops. Flowers are not included, but we expect here also very, very high losses. And then China, Asia in general is not doing great if it comes to food loss and waste and the greenhouse gas emissions. So it's very good that we are discussing this topic today because China is actually leading in food loss and waste. Then comes India, and then other Asian countries are Indonesia, which are under the top 10 countries who are having the highest losses and producing the highest greenhouse gas emissions. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we have a lot of experience, like I said before, in the Netherlands, and we are number one in the world when it comes to post-harvest research and technology. And this has been developed over time historically for sure, so with more than 80 years of experience. So when we started actually with post-harvest research, it was on cooling technology. And I'm not saying that cooling technology today is not anymore relevant. It's still as relevant as it has been in the early years, but we realized there are other things which are also relevant. And today for sure we're looking more into transitions also in the cooling technology, using less energy, for instance, or having smaller units, so bring them to the processing, bring them to the producers, also that cooling can take place directly at the producer levels. But then another things, we are very strong on the packaging, so that has been also further elaborated during the years. Maybe we started with very simple solutions like crates, but now we have more the sophisticated solutions also to looking in a reusable crates also, and bring them back to the producers, and also include there some technologies like sensing technology, big data, with artificial intelligence. So things which have been developing during the last year more intensively. So there's huge experience and there's not one solution like we heard earlier. We need what I like that very much, not high solution, really need really smart technology. Can we go to the next slide? So what is key once this compost harvest technology for sure is extending shelf life, because when we can extend the shelf life, we can increase also, we can approach new markets, we can shift the modality. What I mean with that, many produce which is exported and have a tentative shelf life, it's now exported by air, and this is not sustainable in the long run for sure, and it's also very costly. But if we can increase the shelf life, we can look in modality shift, like going to air freight, going to container shipment via ships. And we have a lot of technology in this regard, and I like to give you an example in my next slide. Okay. Yeah, so this is for sure looks very complicated, but I will guide you through briefly this example. Here we guided one of our clients to bring the product, which was in this case produced in Mexico, to bring it to the European market. And it's mango, and until that moment it was mainly tracked, and you see this in the orange line with a short shelf life to the US, because this only takes a few days. And it arrived there. Point B is that ripened and then was sold into the market with a perfect quality. But the market there, was not sufficient over there in the US, and also not so becoming less interesting for our clients. So they were looking into going to export to Europe. They've been doing so in the past by air, like I explained, very costly, and it's pellet shipment. It's not about containers, and they have big rooms. So we looked into with them how we can really go look for clients with them and really support them going into new markets, the European market, which is a high-end market and had high demand for the mangoes at that specific window. But that means quite some substantial change. It needs to have a well understanding for sure of the crop physiology, and that is not only for mangoes but all crops. So you need to understand how the ripening stage goes for this crop, and we can measure that with all kind of volunteers, but we can also measure that by using bricks and firmness. So this mango need to get picked up a little bit earlier, need to get much faster into the pre-cooling. So we did that by looking for the right producers also in the area. And then it went quite successfully by ship to the European market. A2 is the point where it arrives to the European market. And in Europe, mangoes, most of our mangoes, which are in the high and really high-end market, they go then in the ripening. So we need even extra shelf life. So that's just in a nutshell an example how we can support companies to, with technology and our knowledge, to go to access new markets and increase the shelf life by increasing the shelf life of the crop. Can we go to the next slide? Can we go to the next slide, please? So we know the reality, like I said earlier, of in many countries in the world is that there are a lot of smallholders. Actually, the majority of the farmers in the world, they are smallholders, and they're not directly linked to market. Can we go to the next slide? So there are a lot of, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So a lot of, no, the previous slide, please. So organizing this supply chain, we heard that earlier, the first mile solution, that's very critical. And there are a lot of costs going along to be saved if you do that rightly. And we are very strong in agro-logistic design, combination with knowing the crop physiology. So how to organize, that's not one size fits all way. It depends on the crop physiology for sure. It depends on the market you want to go to. And it depends for sure on your investments you can do. But ideally, you have an integrated approach. And in some places, you maybe even have to decide to bring the packaging and the grading to the farmers instead of producing a lot of produce which might be graded later on and sorted later on in the pack house and might not comply, because then you are throwing away a lot of crops. And then also the last mile is very critical, how you're going to design your last mile distribution. And depends really where you're going to. So like big cities like Beijing, they have a totally different, we develop totally different designs for those because of the tremendous traffic also over there. Then, and the short time people like to have their product. If it's e-commerce, for instance, they want to order and have it within an hour they produce. So that needs, like you will understand, totally different design of agro-logistic design supply network than a network with a different question. Can we go to the next slide, please? There are many solutions out there, technical solutions, and I like that my previous speakers also say the technical solution is nice, but it won't solve your problem. So we need smart pollution and don't overinvest. So we totally agree with that. There are solutions like solar cooling, use of crates, which have tremendous impact already if you have the right crates to have better quality. But here we also have an example of something we invented and developed, and actually startup is now making money out of it is just covering the TPA in the container to have a better air move and temperature control, therefore, in the containers for perishables. Can we go to the next slide, please? There are also other more high-tech solutions, non-restrictive measures to control quality. And this is on the right side, we use for mushrooms developed by us also, because we have a very strict quality control on all our crops. So instead of doing it manually and a random control by our technology, the color feature technology, we can have whole batches controlled, which in seconds, and 100% control of them on the quality. Here we have the hyperspectral imaging control we are working on for avocados, and we can see directly what kind of quality with the image you can see over here the avocado has. Can we go to the next slide? We also work with a lot of quality prediction models. Here's a Bayesian model. We have other models. They are for sure sophisticated.
Excuse me, Ms. Heike, your microphone is mute.
Has it been muted the whole time? I'm sorry. Okay, so here we also use a lot of prediction models, and here we use the Bayesian network to predict the quality of the produce from the moment of the harvest and once it goes to the market. So that gives us the buyer better information to which market the product can go to. Can we go to the next slide, please? For sure, this is a high technical level model. So concluding, we really need integrated approaches which include first mile and last mile delivery. Not only the technology part and the agro-logistic part, but we also need to a system which designs the information and the organizational structure. Can we go to the next slide? And I'd like to share with you also some good examples we have started up this year. For sure, there are so many others, and you have heard them before. For instance, we started up together with our top sector and agricultural councillors, we started up initiatives in Vietnam and India. So in India, we just had a roundtable with key stakeholders, also some of them today here from the Netherlands and from India, to look how to set up a task force against food loss and waste. And also we have started up this year with our embassy and our ministry as a design of a roadmap for post-harvest losses in Vietnam, and we have chosen the dragon fruit and the Red River Delta, and Longan also, that's I think wrong, Mekong Delta. And in the past, there have been a lot of engagement between our two ministries, the Vietnamese ministry and the Dutch ministry, to bring that forward. And I think the role of our ministries are really important, and that to make the first step. And I think the ambition should be not to have small impact and small supply chains, because our challenges are actually huge. So we should make it scalable, and that means like also the previous panelists had, that needs collaboration in a food system approach with our governments, with the local governments, and with, for sure, the industries, the private sector, but also the Knowledge Institute. Can we go to the next slides? So I'd like to thank you for your information, for your attention, and we are pleased to help you further if you have any further question, and to discuss opportunities also for export or for accessing new interesting markets. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Haige. She is in rush. You can put it in 10 minutes. Very effective. So right now we come to the last part of the session. Once again, if you have any question, you can drop on the question box here. The last part of the session, we are welcoming our agricultural counselor for Vietnam and Thailand, Mr. Willem Kruger, in order to give the closing remark. Before Mr. Willem comes, I want to make sure everyone understands the same. So if you want to attend in fruit, flower, vegetable session, please go to the chat box and click next after Mr. Willem closing speech. Thank you very much, and I give floor to Mr. Willem.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. You do an excellent job. And thank you to all the speakers. I think we heard a lot of information to further digest. Very good to hear some lessons learned from experiences from companies and research institutes in the region here. Also good to hear the latest trends and techniques from the research centers and from Wageningen University. We discussed some trends, urbanization, food security, logistics, but also a lot of tips. And I think those tips are really the takeaways from this webinar. One that I remember is listen to the farmers and listen to the market, and partner up with people in the countries you want to work with. And that is actually exactly also where the embassy can step in and can help you with market information, to bring you in contact with farmers, but also to find relevant partners. But also the other way around. If this story has inspired you in Indonesia or in Singapore or in Malaysia, in Thailand or Vietnam, do never hesitate to reach out to the Netherlands embassy in the countries. Look for the agricultural colleague there, and he or she is really happy to discuss with you what the possibilities are. I will not make it too long, Madam Moderator, because I saw you were running a little bit out of time. I think with these lessons learned and some inspiration from the Netherlands, it's time to move on to session 2, where we will also hear some local perspectives, some examples from the different countries, and also some examples of companies that want to present themselves from the Netherlands. And hopefully that session will also lead to some further partnerships between the region and the Netherlands. I thank you so much for attending this part. Wish you all the luck for the second part. Before I do that, I really want to thank all the people that were involved bringing this wonderful webinar together. I know there were a lot of people involved, but let me thank one person in particular, and that is my colleague Laan here in the embassy, who put all the program together and contacted all the speakers and made a wonderful lineup for this webinar. And of course, in Pharma, thank you as well for your support. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Willem. And now you have to go to your breakout session by clicking on the breakout session link. Thank you very much, and thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve it.
Yes.